Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we're going to pick up here the story of Mies Kinson, although at the moment he's not really the hero. And he's not the villain either. We are picking up with the story of Mies Kinson here in Act 2, Scene 4, Episode 15 of the series. So, just as a quick reminder as to what happened previously, if you haven't watched the previous ones, I would suggest using the playlist to go back and watch some of the previous episodes so that you can get all up to speed. But what is happening right now? We are on the island. The island. Well, we are on an island. We are on an island with a splinter group, a very small group that has recently apparently caught the attention of the rogue AI that is causing problems, and we believe actually just like killing people, seeming virtually at random here on this planet, or at least it seemed like it started at random. We had some of the homeless population got killed off one way or another. And recently we've had the leader of this planet, not particularly charismatic, but nonetheless a somewhat authoritarian guy, uh, also had an accident where an elevator fell and he died. Um, so things are looking pretty bad right now with this AI causing problems, and the AI has made very clear and kind of taunted Mies and company that the AI is aware of them, right? And that they will um, have problems if they don't let up. Well, another thing we learned is that the AI seems to be religiously motivated, that somewhere along the lines it picked up that it is, in some sense, on the side of righteousness. So the killings that seemed random to us were not necessarily random to the AI. Rather, the AI became aware of various vices or what it would consider vices, and then was executing judgment. Right, so that is where we are at this point. Now, just so we know, just a reminder of some of the characters in our cast. Right, so we have Mies is certainly the main character, though he's not been particularly active because one of the issues with the Cepheus system and then applying some randomness to it is that you can sometimes end up with an adventure that doesn't necessarily match the character very well because there's a lot of randomness in how characters are generated. Then if you also have a random mission, there's a lot of randomness going on here, right? But at the very least, we have Mies, who is not a computer guy trying to fight an AI, right? So, but he has nonetheless made some connections here with with the Splinter Group, right? So he first connected with Mara Sonez, who is a grumpy drifter. He met her several planets ago. The two of them have been traveling together. They also met George Waters. Was the first time that Mara and Mies worked together, where George almost killed Mies. But nonetheless, George ended up here and is now seemingly on at least a more useful side, if not the side of good in any strict sense. Shira Kali is the technician here, who's the one who actually has some kind of computer expertise, who we think may possibly be useful in countering this AI. So what we're trying to figure out at this point is what exactly we have to do, right, to defeat this AI, and then carrying that out, while at the same time, the AI is aware of us and is going to be trying to counter us as well. Right, so turning then to Covetous Poet, which is what we've been using as our springboard, right, for our randomness. Right, so let's go ahead and roll. We're in challenge scenes now, as we would be in Act 2. Right, so challenge scene number 11. We're supposed to convince authorities or important NPCs. Oh dear. We've already tried that. It didn't go well, but there's a new authority in town, right? So convince authorities or important NPCs. Right, so that's the challenge we're going to face here. Then we also have several elements. So we need action thing, plot device, opposition, and location. Looks like we're going to start with plot device here. Right, plot device is one of the more unique parts of the Covetous Poet system, right? In that it's a way of trying to bring in genre-specific tropes. Looks like 909 would be our plot device. So 909 on this list is Wanted Alien Menace. the description of this is that there's a manhunt or alien hunt on for some very wanted person. Right, then we're going to turn back. We also need a thing. It's also a D1000 table. 243 is a double cross. Oh dear. Now, we produce all of these things just so we have some inspiration as we head into actions, as we head into the scene. Yeah, sometimes I forget these things. Well, I don't actually need this anymore. Tossed off to the side. Can I actually pick it up and throw it over the side of the... Yeah, I probably could. Goodbye. Okay, that's kind of fun. All right, so let's look at my actions. Action 270 is destroy. And then we need a location. There that is. So roll here on the D1000 table. We've got 411. A lawyer's office. Okay. Now, as I always say with these are just supposed to be used for inspiration as needed. Uh, I'm not bound by these in any way. Right now, naturally, if you wanted to, you could make a game out of, can I actually include all of these or not? It's a D100 for opposition. Opposition here would be 38. That'd be huge monster or desperate villain. Okay. Getting everything jotted down in my notebook. Okay. So, just as a quick reminder, here are the elements we're looking for. Convince authorities or important NPCs is the challenge we're going to be facing. Plot device, wanted alien menace. Thing, a double cross. Action, destroy. Location, lawyer's office. And opposition, huge monster or a desperate villain. Okay. So, thinking then about the setup, kind of where we are to start. We are on this island. The law enforcement officers have recently left. And they decided that they weren't going to do anything to us, but that we needed to stop acting so sus. Yes. Let's face it, it's weird to have a bunch of off-worlders living on an island in the middle of the river when we are in a significant city here on, like, literally, this is like the capital of the subsector. So that's weird. It's weird, and it's going to catch the attention of the authorities, and especially the fact that we've been doing various network searches for anything related to this AI caught the attention of the AI, who in turn, I believe, caught the attention of the authorities and kind of sicked them on us. Fortunately, the authorities were lenient enough to realize there wasn't actually any crime that was obvious here. We clearly weren't doing harm to anybody, but we should, in some sense, move along. Okay. So, what is happening right now is we do know that we have some new leadership that has been installed. This Richie Riffost, who is a rather cold in his personality type of politician, that is his reputation, and that seems to be common for the political system here. It seems to be very much run by people who are very good at operating the bureaucracy, right? So it's not really demagogues. It's very much like the cold technocrat type of person. So, so it looks like what we are hoping to do here is to convince the authorities or important NPCs that they should, in fact, try to deal with this AI. Our hope had been to do this with the predecessor, Bruce Cotta, but we didn't have much success with that. But now we have a bigger group, one, and a different person to try to convince. Right, so maybe we'll be more successful here. It's possible. Okay. All right. So I don't know that I like this scene though. So that's the thing, right? Because I mean, okay, we'll do it, and maybe and we'll just see. We'll see what Richie Rafos does, right? Kind of whether we can even get in to see him or not. And so, okay, well, let's go for it. So my first question for the fate chart is, right, or is to the oracle. Oracle here. Use the general term oracle. Right, so I want to ask a yes no question. Oh, turn the wrong way. Right, so yes no question. So the way that I'm imagining this happening is that we're all talking about, we're like, okay, we're clearly under the gun here. Right? We have some sense of what we believe is happening. We need to make sure the authorities know this, and then trust they're likely going to act on it. I think this is definitely going to be the view that Mies is going to take. I suspect Mara would be on board with this as well. I'm not as sure about Shira. We don't know very much about Shira. And I doubt that George Waters, given his own history, he's kind of insane. Right? I don't know what like how they're going to react to this. Right. So let's say that, you know, I think Mies and Mara developed this idea, and it's really up to Mies, being, I guess, in some sense, the more respectable of them, right, to try to convince the other two. This is really what we should do. We should go and try to convince them. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. So I'm going to go ahead and just do one persuade roll, which I think is going to be a social roll, which is bad for Mies. I guess Mies gets a +0 on anything social, because he doesn't have great social standing. It's not like, a noble or anything. But he can nonetheless appeal to his friends here. I'm going to kind of do something weird here, and then I'm going to do a single roll, but then I'm going to apply two different modifiers to it. So first thing I want to do, I want to find out a little bit more about Shira and what her personality is like. Right, so let's go ahead and roll on that. It's a D50 table, so I'll roll 100, divide by 2, round up. It's exactly 100. All right. Right, so on this personality table, oh, turn too far. All right, so shrewd or vindictive. Ooh, oh, that's interesting. Right, so which is it? So, sure, I'm gonna say shrewd. I like the idea of Shira being a shrewd technician, so I'm gonna add that to my character card here. Right, so shrewd technician. Right, so I think that's going to make her a little bit more persuadable than George Waters will be. So I'm going to roll based on Misa's abilities. He gets a +0. I think that this is something Shira would naturally be inclined to want to do, uh, because it would be way better if the attention of the AI was on a broader group than it is just on this small group. Right, so I think that Shira's on probably going to be on board. So I think I'm going to give like a +2 for that. Meanwhile, George Waters, I think it's going to be a harder sell, so I'm going to give a -2 for that. So I'm going to do a single roll, +2 for how Shira reacts, -2 for how George reacts. So here we go. Social roll is a 5. Neither of them are convinced. Because you need an 8. 5 plus 2 is a 7, right? So Shira's like, I kind of, but we haven't succeeded in the past. I don't think it's gonna work. And George Waters is flat out against it. He thinks this is a bad idea. He doesn't think we can trust those in authority because they have not done anything. They are trying to pretend it doesn't exist. George Waters is well against this idea, right? So we have Shira saying, yeah, right, and George being adamantly against it, right? So we are not going to get any help from our allies if we decide this is the path we want to take of trying to convince the authorities, these new authorities, that they really do need to take the AI seriously. So I think then we need to think about whether this is something we still want to do or not. I think the answer is still yes. Right? That we, in fact, still want to try and convince these authorities, specifically Richie Rifost, uh, of the necessity of doing something here. So I think that's what we're going to do, right? So first thing we have to do, we have to get off the island. I assume there's not going to be any problem with this, right? So we leave the island, we go back to one of the docks and get off one of the places where it was Sarah Lazal who originally picked us up, right? So I assume, right, that either Shira or George can get us there, right, and drop us off and say good luck. And I'm going to say it's George, right? So George is the one who says, "Yeah, I'll take you. Sure, why not?" Right, right. So George takes us, and as soon as we get off the boat, but when it fails, you can come back. So I think that was very nice of him. as far as that goes. Right. So then we're going to head to the government offices here. So I'm wondering what the state of things is like here at the government offices. Right. So I want to see like um how busy is it? I guess would be a good question. So is it kind of the regular amount of busyness that we would expect? So I'm going to say a 50-50 on this one. So we'll roll a 51 would be no, it's not as busy as we normally expect. So I assume then it's going to be not particularly busy, right? So I think things are still kind of empty, which makes some degree of sense. I mean, the elevator did just fail. So that's a question, right? Like, is the government office even open? Right? I mean, if it's not that busy, I mean, sensibly there might be people trying to repair the elevator, but it's believable to me that there's actually nobody here. Just keep turning the wrong way, right? So, you know what? I'm going to say it's actually very likely this office is closed. Is it closed? Yeah. Yeah, so the office is actually closed. Right, so we get there and there's actually no actual business going on. There's in fact a sign right outside, right, saying these offices are closed for renovations or something along those lines. Um, for any urgent business, please go to the office of Richie Riffost, who in fact we know is involved with government for a while, probably has a background in law. This might in fact be a lawyer's office. Ah, okay, one of our elements, lawyer's office. Right, now checked. Right, so we find out kind of where Richie Riffost's office is, right, and we start heading that direction. Okay, we get there. Now, I assume this place is probably going to be pretty busy. So let's say that's extremely likely that this is actually quite busy and probably packed to capacity. And 90 is enough because I said extremely likely. Yeah, so there are all kinds of people here. It's a lawyer's office. It's not designed for running an entire government out of, right? But that is what is having to happen here. So the place is jam-packed, crowded, probably violating some codes, I expect, right? So that is the state of things here. The question is, right, can we actually convince anybody to let us in or get a message to or something like that, get us some kind of contact with Richie Riffost? So let's go to the most obvious thing. Let's see if we can figure out who the receptionist or secretary is that then could get us in to see Richie Riffost. So we're going to locate this person and then see if we can get some kind of um, what was it? Oh, this would be an admin role, wouldn't it? Oh, crap. It's at a -3. All right. So it's an admin role because we're dealing with bureaucracy here, right? So we'll roll it -3, and if it's socially based or social intelligence or um, education, any of those are at a 0. So I'm rolling -3. Nope. Nope. They're not going to let us in. All right. So we managed we did actually manage to find the secretary. The secretary says, basically, why should Leader Riffost be willing to talk to you? Sorry, we're busy. Right. Uh, Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your concerns. And see ya. Right. So we leave. So I think going through official channels here is not really working particularly well. So now the question is there some way that we can contact him otherwise? Right. So one thing I would note is that we do have some reasonable ability in recon, some reasonable ability in corrals. So these open up some possibilities. Some reasonable ability in comms at that. So what I'm thinking about here is that, okay, just kind of walking in, talking to the secretary, sweet talking our way in is not going to work for us. That's not within our skill set. But what might be within our skill set is doing some recon. So find out where he lives and sneak in. I think that very well might actually work. Right. So let's see if we can manage that, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to do a bit of a stakeout here, right? Try to figure out if we can find out where Richie Riffost lives, and we are literally doing it as a stakeout, where we are hanging out outside, right? Keeping an eye on the door when things are closing. Right? That is literally what we are trying to do here, right? So let's go ahead and roll the. Oh dear, So- all right. So this is at a +0. And I guess I'm this one, just like the recon aspect of it, this would be intelligence, which would be a 0. So just a straight up roll, I'm hoping for an 8 or more. Something has to succeed at some point, right? This would not be it, right? So we keep an eye on it, right? And we have to occasionally get something to eat or what have you, and we watch this place till it's very clear there is nobody there. Everybody has left for the day. It's nighttime. Things are getting dark. We missed him. He must have snuck out at some point, maybe when we were getting something to eat, maybe when we were watching somebody else, maybe when we were complaining to each other about how we're not the right people for this mission. We missed him, right? So he's gone. We don't know where he lives. It's so it looks like this is not working particularly well. Okay. Now, I still have um, a few other actions, or not, a few other elements that could be brought in here, right? And that would be, right, so we've brought in convincing authorities. This is not going particularly well. We still have a wanted alien menace, double cross, destroy, and huge monster desperate villain. I just got an idea of what this all might actually mean. Okay, right, so we know somebody, right, who was a desperate villain in the past. And this would look something like a double cross, perhaps. So I'm wondering what George Waters has been up to while we have been doing this stakeout. So let's go ahead and do some rolls, right? Because it makes sense. Wanted alien menace. Yeah, he would probably actually be wanted, at least in some systems. Maybe not here. Apparently the law enforcement didn't pick him up. Right? So I want to see what he's doing. Because I have a feeling that he may be trying to take some action right now. And I kind of like where that's going, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's going to bring things to an end, but I think it might bring things forward. So let's go ahead and think about it. Right, so first thing, very unlikely. Is George Waters just sitting on his island not doing anything? Very unlikely would require O5, so that's a no. Right, so he's not just sitting around doing nothing. He is, in fact, doing something. And here's where I want to bring in the idea of double cross and destroy. I think it's very possible. George Waters, we know, is a little crazy. He is not okay with us trying to go to the authorities and all this. I think he might possibly be trying to do more harm, right, to the government building in some way. So that is my feeling. Right. So does he commit some kind of attack against the government offices that are currently being repaired? I'm going to say this is very likely. So 75% chance. If I roll 75 or less, barely. 71, that's a yes. Right. So I think he's back to his old terrorist ways. Right. So while we are sitting there waiting and waiting for Richie Rifas to come out of his office, right, we hear something. And that is coming from a few blocks away. Right? There's an explosion. We hear sirens, right, going off. And various law enforcement taking off, right, heading in the direction of where we know this is the direction of the government offices. So now we have to decide, do we want to go to them? We know that odds are that like there's probably maybe some workers in there. Do we okay, this is a question. I wonder if Mara or Mies suspect that George might have something to do with it. Because we've seen him do crazy stuff like this before. Right? So it's believable to me. I'm going to say it's 50-50. No, I think it's actually very likely they might at least suspect that he is in some way involved. So let's go ahead and roll it. 29, yeah, yeah. So they suspect that George is in some way involved with what just happened, or they suspect this is the government office, right? So they're going to head back that direction, see if they can intercept him. Right, okay. So there we go. We have a wanted alien menace, something getting destroyed, right? And in some sense, this is a double cross because after all, where did he think we were, right? And this is definitely a desperate villain, perhaps. Right, so we're going to go and we're going to see if we can find uh, George Waters there. So I'm going to go ahead and roll recon again. Right, do we see George Waters here? Let's roll that again. 11. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Yes. Yes, we know that he is here because I think we've already established that this was actually his actions. So we see him, right? I assume kind of leaving the scene. That's the question, right? Has law enforcement caught him? So we can see him. Is law enforcement, have they gotten him? Law level is really high on this planet. It's very possible. I'm gonna say 50-50. Like if we get there, they were ahead of us. The odds of them finding him are pretty high. Actually, it's probably 70. Yeah, it's very likely. 94, no. Okay. All right. So no. So law enforcement got there. They're like, blocking everything off and what have you. They apparently missed the guy who did it. Right? He managed to like move a block away or something like that. Right? He's far enough away that they missed it. Right? Right? So we managed to get to him before any kind of law enforcement does. Right? So what does this conversation look like? I mean, okay, let's actually roll for this. So I'm real curious. So this conversation chart. So okay, okay, this is just to get the general tone of the conversation. What I'm really torn about is that this is somebody, or on the one hand, we're kind of on the same side in a sense, right? So friendly acquaintance is about right, or, or but on the other hand, we're not very happy at the moment, right? So let's go ahead and roll it. Okay, let's roll a 2d6. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it on the unfriendly table. 5. So the general tone of the conversation is unhelpful. Okay. All right. So the way that I'm imagining this going is one, we are obviously not on board with what George wants to do. So we're unhelpful in that sense. On the other hand, George himself is not particularly helpful in explaining himself because we really want some kind of explanation. Why did you do this? This is insane. Right? And and he's just very convinced that he's, well, they weren't going to do anything anyway. There are a bunch of computers in there. For all we know, this is where the thing may have been housed. Right. Right. So I think that is actually like literally what he believes. He believes that like there are servers in the government building, and that he thought that they could possibly end up doing damage right through this explosion. Um, Now I strongly suspect this would not work. Right, and I think it obviously right does not work. Right? So I guess that's a question, right? So we can ask, right? So like, did did Shira say that you should go along with like this plan? This seems obviously insane, right? So 35, no, no, because I think it's very unlikely that she would have gone along with this. So no, no, she was not on board with this plan. Okay, that's good. That's good. We probably have at least one sane person, right, in this group. All right. But so I think that we talk to him, we say, all right, well, one, we've got to get you out of here because this is going to be a serious problem, especially because, we've got to find a new place. We do. Because the law enforcement already knew where we were. They saw you literally today, right? And now almost certainly you're going to be on a camera somewhere, right? Having set these explosives. Right. All right, so yeah, we've got to find a new place. We've got to find a new place to settle in. Right. So that's a question. So is there, there probably would be, right? Is there some kind of like abandoned warehouse district or something like that where we can find some kind of abandoned building that we could move into? That's the question. Okay. 83? I thought it was very likely. This is actually a no, right? So I guess that tells us this is such a bustling city that there really aren't abandoned buildings, right? That everything is being used in some fashion, which really makes it difficult for us to find a new base of and that's probably why they're on an island in the middle of the river to start with, because there wasn't anywhere indoors, right, for them to locate. Right. So we have to figure out right where we're going to go. The police aren't going to be checking us continuously, despite the fact that we know that they will. We are off-worlders. They're going to ask for identification on a regular basis, right, from us as long as we are on this planet. Right. This is a bad situation. You put us in a really, really bad place here, George. And so we've got to figure out a new place for us to go so that we can like, bring this all to an end. Let's contact Shira and we'll simply meet up at the docks and take it from there. Right, so I think that's where I'm going to end things here today. That we're planning to meet Shira at the docks, right, and we are going to be looking for a new place for us to locate. But at the same time, we want to hear what Shira's plan would be, what she would suggest. We've already tried the plan that Mese and Mara came up with, being, hey, let's go to the authorities. We've already tried what George's idea was. Let's just blow the thing up. Let's find out what our technician believes. So I think that that is a good place to stop. Next time we'll pick up everybody getting together. They need to find a new place to locate, and we need to find out what Shira's plan would be. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and shut things down. So that means this is Prof E signing off.